Hello. I'm Morgan.
I'm Tuesday, and you're listening to the Naughty Girls podcast, the show that deep dives into early 2000s pop culture.
Today we'll be discussing the new Netflix documentary about Abercrombie and Fitch, one of the hottest stores of the 2000s. That signature cologne smell, the shirtless men plastered all over their stores and bags, the graphic tees and sweaters. A lot of us bought into it.
So the documentary is called White Hot: The Rise and Fall of Abercrombie and Fitch, and it gives us a look into why the clothing company was so successful despite being extremely problematic since its outset.
But before we get into it, shall we share our headlines of the week?
Yeah, so Morgan, if you were a 2000 celebrity on the cover of a tabloid this week, what would the headline say?
Breaking down.
Oh my God, why?
It has to do with my car. So I've had my car for about 5 or 6 years now, and I've had no issues. It's been great. But this past week, it's been just problem after problem. So basically, it started leaking one day, and I don't think it
Oh,
was gas because it didn't really smell like anything. So I'm not really sure what that was about. It stopped since then, probably because whatever liquid was leaking out of it is empty now. And then randomly, three of my windows decided to not work. I can't open them anymore. And then just a few days ago, I was on the highway and I accelerated, and a big black cloud of smoke came out of the back of my car. So I made an appointment to take it in. So I'm actually taking it in tomorrow, and I'm like fully prepared for them to tell me it's going to be like thousands of dollars to fix whatever's going on with my car. So I really hope I call her Helen the Hyundai. I hope that Helen's going to push through for me. So
pray
that
for
would
Helen.
pray for Helen, everybody, please.
Well, I can I just say, so at the time of recording, we are just coming out of Mercury retrograde, and that causes problems with transportation. So
Okay, so that makes total sense.
we have to blame Mercury.
Now over to you, Tuesday. If you were the celebrity on the cover of a tabloid, what would it say about you this week?
It would say Man of the Year, but instead of a picture of me, the cover would feature my last Uber driver.
Okay, I'm excited to hear this.
Okay, so I got in an Uber, and immediately the driver started talking about marriage and love. And he told this beautiful story of how he met his wife in an elevator and proposed to her a week later.
Oh, true
Yeah.
love never dies.
So, anyway, he got into talking about his five children and how he always gives this one specific piece of advice to his girls. So, he told me, I'm going to tell you what I tell my daughters. You are a diamond, not a part-time girl. And I was like, what?
Oh,
So then I just sat there and I thought about it for a minute and I was like, you know what? I am a diamond and I am not a part-time girl.
heck yeah.
So shout out him. I think we need to have more positive life coach Uber drivers like him. So this week
Agreed.
I'd give my magazine cover space to this guy.
Aw, I really hope that I come across him one day. He sounds like a true gem.
We had so many horrible Uber drivers, so I'm glad he exists. Oh, also, he gave me a very specific description of the type of person I should not marry unless I want to get divorced. His words, not mine. So he basically described an Abercrombie and Fitch model.
No way.
So
Well, hey, that leads us perfectly into our topic of the week. So let's get into this episode. White Hot: The Rise and Fall of Abercrombie and Fitch was directed by Alison Clayman and explores how Abercrombie and Fitch's exclusionary branding made them rise to extreme heights in the 2000s and how it eventually led to their demise.
the documentary centers around interviews with former employees, including people who were hired as models, retail staff, and people from the executive offices. We get a better sense of how the company truly operated as they recount their experiences of working at what they've largely described as a discriminatory and toxic workplace.
So the Abercrombie Company was established in 1892 by David Abercrombie. It was originally a brand that catered to outdoorsy elite sportsmen.
Like they were actually selling camping, hunting, and fishing gear for its first 100 years of existence. It makes sense now why their logo was a moose.
And in 1904, Abercrombie partnered with a man named Ezra Fitch, hence the name changed to Abercrombie and Fitch. Their clientele mainly consisted of American elites, including Presidents Roosevelt and Kennedy, but then in 1988, its vision changed.
Abercrombie and Fitch was bought by businessman Les Wexner, who is a major retail owner at malls in America. Like he also owns Victoria's Secret and Bath and Body Works for context. Wexner then brought in CEO Mike Jeffries, who had a mission to transform the brand.
Oh, and that he did. Jeffries wanted to keep Abercrombie's heritage as the outdoorsman brand, but also started to incorporate sexual imagery, elitism, and exclusivity to appeal to the teen and college markets. Now, I'm interested to hear what your first impressions of Abercrombie and Fitch was when we were younger. Did you ever shop there when your family visited the United States?
Not really. So So I remember shopping at its sister store, Hollister, only once in middle school before I ever set foot in an Abercrombie. And I'm pretty sure it was in 2010 that I made my first purchase there. So kind of past its peak as a popular brand. But I just remember feeling mortified by carrying the Abercrombie shopping bag around the mall because there was a picture of a shirtless guy's torso on it. And I kept trying to fold it in half and press it against my leg to hide him.
Ah, the classic shirtless guy.
Yeah, my mom saw it and she was like, whoa. I did feel for the longest time that what they were selling just wasn't my style. But when I started to grow out of the alternative or like scene kid fashion of the late 2000s and ended up at this kind of preppy, predominantly white high school, I think there was a part of me that wanted to blend in a little bit more. So I felt drawn to try that look. But also, the storefront was very alluring and it smelled like a hot man.
Yeah, totally. And their branding and marketing definitely worked on me personally. So many kids at our high school, they wore their clothes, and I was guilty of wanting to fit in. So whenever my family and I went to the US for vacation, I would like research the closest malls and note which ones had an Abercrombie and Fitch so we could hit it up. I mean, the store itself was definitely a vibe. You kind of mentioned that already. The dark shutters on the outside of the store, the overpowering cologne, the music blasting. My parents for sure rolled their eyes and didn't understand why I wanted to shop there. And now looking back, I feel the exact same way that they did.
I mean, we knew so many kids who loved shopping there, and I'm still not sure why we accepted it as being the epitome of cool. Because honestly, being inside the store was very overwhelming and kind of intimidating. Also, the price tags were ridiculously high. Like, I could never justify paying $60 for a t-shirt with a moose on it.
Well, speaking of their t-shirts, this documentary highlighted that one of the company's first major controversies concerned their cheap graphic tees. In 2002, they released a line of t-shirts that featured racist stereotypes. Like, for example, they sold a shirt with a drawing of a donkey and a sombrero that said Juan more for the road, where Juan was spelled Juan. They also had a number of shirts that picked on Asian people. The caricatures on the shirts always depicted Asian people as having slanted eyes and wearing rice hats, with slogans like Wong Brothers Laundry Service, two Wongs can make it white, eat in and walk out, and walk and bowl.
Understandably, this sparked outrage among the Asian American community, and Asian American college students and advocacy groups held protests in front of Abercrombie and Fitch stores across the US, demanding that the shirts be removed. A week after they launched, though, the shirts were discontinued and withdrawn from all stores. Abercrombie did continue to sell graphic tees that poked fun at other groups of people, though, and because they were apparently very popular with their clientele, they kept producing them.
These shirts were so obviously racist that I can't even begin to understand how they got approved. People clearly just thought they were funny, but racism is not humorous whatsoever.
Well, the documentary did reveal that there were, in fact, two Asian American members on the board that approved the shirts, and that was thought to justify that they weren't actually a racist brand or something. But what I can say from personal experience is that it is really difficult to speak up against racism in the workplace when you're a racial minority in a majority white office. Like at one of my old jobs, for a while, I was the only woman of color in my section, and at one point, they literally asked me to participate in a diversity calendar photo shoot. So, I mean, I definitely didn't feel safe enough to speak up against certain microaggressions or flat out racism. And there was unfortunately a lot of that. So I can imagine it was probably hard to stand up to Abercrombie executives when their official stance was, quote, anybody who buys our clothes knows we don't target any particular race. We pretty much make fun of everybody.
And that wasn't the only way that the company practiced discrimination. Another large part of the documentary focuses on Abercrombie's questionable hiring practices. Mike Jeffries had a very specific vision for who could represent the brand, and only people that were deemed good looking or cool enough were hired. And we learned that there was actually a company book that outlined what good looking looks like to help make the hiring process easier for managers.
Essentially, the criteria were be a white person with a neatly combed, attractive, and natural hairstyle. The book explicitly said that anyone with dreadlocks could not make the cut. And because Mike Jeffries was apparently very intense when he'd make his inspection visits to the stores to make sure everything and everyone was up to his standards, certain staff members were kept around just to be standing in the store when he would go there.
Yeah, that's wild. According to the former employees that were interviewed, racial minority employees were rarely hired to begin with, and if they did have a job at Abercrombie, they were relegated to the back stockroom or evening shifts when not as many customers would be in the store.
But then the employees decided to fight back. So in June 2003, 9 Abercrombie & Fitch employees filed a class action lawsuit against the company for race and sex discrimination discrimination. Among them was Carla Barrientos, who appears in the documentary. And she was only 19 years old when she worked at the Abercrombie in Bakersfield, California. And she claimed that as the only Black employee at that store, she was typically scheduled for after-hours shifts. When she asked for daytime shifts, she was told that none were available. And after she asked her manager if she could just switch with another employee who had a day shift, they stopped scheduling her and let her assume she was fired without receiving official notice.
This actually happened to several other Black employees, but Abercrombie and Fitch denied the allegations. Their lawyers gaslit the plaintiffs into thinking that they just didn't have quote unquote the look, not that they were being discriminated against.
Despite admitting no guilt, Abercrombie and Fitch settled the suit by paying out $40 million, and they had to sign a consent decree to change its practices and promote diversity across the brand. So because of the consent decree, they created the position of Chief Diversity Officer to try and mitigate future problems, but that wasn't the end of their days in court.
No, certainly not. In 2013, they paid out $71,000 to two Muslim women who were discriminated against for wearing a hijab. One woman, Hani Khan, worked at Abercrombie for 4 months and was told she could wear a hijab that matched the colors of the store. But she was fired after a district manager came for a visit and noticed her. The second woman, Hala Banafa, was flat out refused a job because she wore a hijab.
And later in 2015, Abercrombie was hit with an employment discrimination lawsuit because they refused to hire a woman named Samantha Alof in 2008 because she wore a headscarf for religious purposes. And her case made it up to the US Supreme Court and she won. But Abercrombie argued that headscarves violated their dress policy, which was described as classic East Coast collegiate style.
Which is just about the dumbest thing that I've ever heard.
Agreed.
Discrimination and exclusionary was evidently their brand.
And they were proud of it. Back in 2006, Mike Jeffrey said in an interview, quote, "We go after the cool kids. We go after the attractive, all-American kid with a great attitude and a lot of friends. A lot of people don't belong in our clothes, and they can't belong. Are we exclusionary? Absolutely."
The more I learn about this guy, the more I seriously hate him.
Same.
Honestly, it kind of makes me think of the hiring process at one of our first jobs. We briefly touched on this during our last episode, but one of our first jobs was at a company that hosted Disney-themed birthday parties for children. We would host the birthday parties along with someone dressed as a Disney princess, and when we sent in our resumes, we were told to send in 2 to 3 photos of ourselves. If you were quote unquote pretty enough, they would hire you.
It was weird too because the interview was done over the phone, so I didn't realize it at the time, but they really only cared that you were photogenic. And I also remember for a brief period of time we worked with a girl who originally applied to be a princess performer but was refused because she was told she didn't have the right look or didn't wear enough makeup, and they kept making her try over and over again only to be told no. But this girl was like objectively gorgeous for the record and one of the sweetest people. And when she talked to me about it, we kind of got the impression that one of the managers might have also had a problem with the fact that she was a young mom. So anyway, she ended up quitting the job pretty quickly. And then she went on to win a national beauty pageant, if that tells you anything.
Well, shall we look at where the company is now and how it's changed?
Absolutely. First and foremost, Mike Jeffries stepped down as CEO very unexpectedly in December 2014. But it was exactly what the company needed to redeem itself, though, because his controversial comments were drawing too much backlash and hurting their sales.
They phased out the moose logo and shirtless male models. They revamped their stores with brighter lighting and softer music, and they completely changed their hiring practices. They no longer hire people based on their looks, and they say now that they look for people who are nice, smart, optimistic, and have a strong work ethic.
The brand was completely overhauled in the sense that they're now focused on being size inclusive too. Have you seen their website lately?
Yes, their stuff's actually really, really cute. Definitely a lot more mature, and their models range in size, height, and ethnicity, which is actually really nice to see. Something that we didn't see in earlier years. With June being Pride Month as well, they have a large spread on their website with the words, "We belong together. Celebrate Pride with us in our gender inclusive collection designed for everyone." I can't believe that this is the same company.
Yeah, nothing quite like a company asking for our forgiveness by announcing itself as an LGBTQ plus ally. But, baby steps. I did wonder why the documentary didn't get into its rebrand, but I guess because it's all still fairly recent. Would you shop there?
After everything that I've learned about the company, I don't think that I would willingly give them my money. Didn't you end up buying a bunch of stuff there over the holidays, though?
I almost did, and this was before I knew anything about the company's history either. So there were some people on TikTok who discovered on New Year's Eve that a glitch on their website let you stack multiple coupon codes on your order. And I ended up talking myself out of buying anything, but I do have a few friends who took advantage of that deal. Like one of my friends bought $700 worth of stuff for only 100 something.
That's insane. Well, at least none of that went to Mike Jeffries. Now, we want to throw the question over to you, listeners. What do you think of Abercrombie and Fitch? Would you give them your business now that they've changed?
Head on over to Instagram to let us know. You can find us at Naughty Girls Pod. We love hearing from you guys.
And we'll catch you guys again in 2 weeks with our next episode. Bye.